Hello, everyone. This is not the most wonderful time to be coming to you, but I feel like it's one of the most important times to take what is going on and to think about how we got here and what exactly we're going to do with this information. First of all, I am a bit of a case study for what's going on with the COVID-19 because I am a bartender slash waitress, and I was asked to leave and I'm no longer able to work. That, of course, was without warning because in America, we have been given mixed messages about how intense this might be. As someone who is very interested in the political side of things, I had more of an idea that it was coming than a lot of other people. But I live in a neighborhood that is filled with a lot of diehard Trump supporters, and they just really didn't think that it was going to be a thing that actually impacted their lives. So it really put a lot of people at a huge disadvantage. Good people who just weren't told the proper things that they needed to know to get ready. So now we're having these crazy mad rushes to the grocery stores, and we're just buying up all sorts of things. A lot of things aren't even the right things to be buying up because we're panicked. We had a chance to get ready for everything. We could have used the countries that have been hit as examples, but instead we decided to stick our head in the ground and hope it went away. And it's not something like that. Back at the beginning of the year, people were still talking about how this was a complete hoax. And that alone is a huge reason why this has gotten so out of control. I mean, every single day we're hearing the count get worse and worse. And I know that the idea of having everyone tested is scary because you know that the count is going to grow massively. And so I know that if you don't want it to seem like it's such a big deal, you're not going to want everyone who has it to know. But the problem with that is that there's so many carriers who can walk around and have no symptoms. There are people who don't have symptoms for a very long period of time. So in our day-to-day life, especially for people like me, I come into contact with hundreds of people. And if I was a person who is sick, then I could give it to everyone. And I think that's a big reason why they closed down dining establishments, because you would have such a long period of time before you would even know that you were spreading it. The funny thing is I was actually listening to a historic example. It was actually a drunk history about the woman who gave everyone typhoid, and she had no symptoms. And so throughout her life, everywhere essentially that she went to cook, she made the wealthy people get sick from it. That sort of virus where not everyone shows the symptoms is actually more dangerous than something where everyone gets sick right away, because the people who are sick, they stay home. So unfortunately, we have found that this is something that impacts people who are older more often, but that's not the case across the board. And what people aren't paying attention to now is that if you go into the hospital and say you have cancer and you need a ventilator, they're already all going to be used for the COVID-19 patients. So this is dangerous on many different levels. We really need to go ahead and have all of our manufacturing companies switch over to start making the personal protective gear that all of the different doctors and nurses need, and the ventilators that are required to keep people alive. Because the people who are saying that we should just let this virus go through all of society, they're not thinking about the fact that it's also going to kill a lot of people that just need medical care in general, because the medical profession is so overburdened. And right now, medical professionals are getting sick. So it's not something that if we just let it go and ignored it, that it only get the older people, as if that's okay. It's not okay, obviously, but right now I'm hearing that many people are convinced that if we just let it run its course, we don't want to hurt the economy. And so because we don't want to hurt the economy anymore, we can just let it go. It'll only kill off a few million people, and that's acceptable, is what I'm hearing. But it would do so much more than that, because this is going to make it impossible to get any sort of medical help. So not only will it kill the millions that are expected if we just let it run rampant at the pace that it's going, but it will also make it so that anyone with medical problems can't get any sort of medical attention. And then once you get all the doctors and nurses sick, then good luck, you know? And with so many people falling out of the workforce, getting ill, not being able to get treated, etc., it won't be good for the economy in the long run. I do understand economics, at least as well as the president does. And the idea that we just need to let our economy go and we need to sacrifice people so that our economy is all right, that would not protect our economy, because the few people that it would protect are the people that would still be able to quarantine at the top, and eventually you would start to lose a lot of the labor. I wouldn't go back to work. I would not make that choice, because I live with people that are very, very important to me. They are a little older than I am, and I wouldn't take that risk. And I think that there's a lot of young individuals who would not take that risk. So I'm hoping that even if politically we don't make the right decisions, I'm hoping that as a country we can come together as individuals who have care for the other people around us and just weather this a little bit. But I understand how incredibly difficult it is. So I had actually just paid for a very expensive item in my life, and I don't have any money, and I'm waiting for my taxes. They haven't gone through yet. I've been waiting for the stimulus package. It hasn't come through yet. I have not been able to get unemployment yet. And so all of these things, they're going pretty slow. And from what I hear on the news, people are blaming the Democrats for holding up the legislation. And they're doing a lot of things wrong. You know, don't get me confused here. The Democrats, they need to tighten their game up too, for the most part. But the idea that we're going to take all of this money that we desperately need. I mean, I can't even imagine if I had a child right now, I would have no way to feed them. I'd have no way to pay my rent. I'd have no way to do anything, especially in a business where you're waiting tables or you're serving people at the bar. It's a quick turnover cash business, you know? You don't necessarily have a lot put away. The cash comes in on a daily basis. So to have that completely shut off is just not something that many people can live with. I've been very, very fortunate in my situation where I don't have to be worried about getting thrown out. But right now, I do think it's important to say no to a bill that we're already going to way overburden our economic situation by all of the stimulus we have to put out. But to have part of that bill be an unregulated, for the most part, fund, just that corporations can kind of pull out without oversight, that is something worth fighting for. That is not something that you should just pass just because this is urgent. This is very urgent. It's urgent for people like me, but for the people that are trying to use this time of urgency for the American people to go ahead and get another payout for these corporations and these executors, is just sick and it's wrong. At this point in time, I know that I believe they have decided that, I think it's Steve Mnuchin. I'll put that in post if it's different. But I think he's the one who's going to be overseeing it. And I think they're saying that for a period of time, you can't fire your employees. But it doesn't say anything about after that. It's like, okay, 6 months, don't fire your employees. That's a very good thing. But if you don't stop corporate buybacks, if you don't say, no, you cannot buy back your own stock, then that money is just going to be used to overinflate the economy and over leverage it again. The concept of leveraging money is also very important because the amount of money that's been put aside for this slush fund, you are allowed to leverage the money multiple times. I think it's up to 10 times, which means that you can actually use that money and borrow even more money on top of it. There's going to be a lot more money in that slush fund than what they're initially saying, because these corporations are going to be able to continue to borrow more money with that money. It's supposed to be complicated so that your average person is just like, ugh, whatever, just pass it. And the reason that we are at such an economic tipping point is because corporations, instead of having money set aside for emergencies, instead of having liquid assets, services put in place for their employees for sick leave, for emergencies like that, instead of doing that, they've artificially inflated the value of their stock. So the people who are at the very head of corporations, they made a ton of money, and now we're giving them more money, and they are ultimately going to be able to do the same thing again, which ultimately puts our economy like teetering on the edge of a precipice. Because the problem with debt on a widespread scale, corporate debt, is that these corporations, they keep getting bailed out by the government. But for example, Boeing was bailed out more than once. Now they're getting bailed out again. And they even cut corners to where some of their planes killed people. But, let's throw more money at them. And now some people said, well, maybe the government should have a little sliver of that company, because obviously you're getting bailed out repeatedly. And then the company was like, never mind. So you're telling me that if you so desperately need this money to survive, you can reject it on any terms? I'm sorry, that is not essential right now. So the people who are trying to sneak on non-essentials to coat the pockets of their friends and big business, because that is what is running our country right now. Big business, it's money. Money is what runs everything. So the people who are fighting to keep these little tacked on corporate welfare in this stimulus package, that is absolutely sick. And they should be absolutely ashamed that they are holding the American people hostage for this. And, the Democrats, they're not doing all that much better. They are so tied up in worrying about means testing people and making sure, I'm not going to give you the $1,000 if heavens to Betsy, you might have, too much money. Oh my God, I'd rather hold everything else up for everybody. They're saying that it could take 4 months to get the money out to certain people. Now look, if you are desperate for $1,200, do you think that you can wait 4 months? Do you really think that that is something that is helping these people? But yet we've already poured tons of money into the stock market. And I think this entire tragedy, unfortunately, I think it's going to eventually blow up in their faces, because finally these corporations are going to realize that without their workers And without people buying their product, they're nothing. And all of these practices that they have used to just make it seem like the company has more worth than it does, it's like the housing bubble. Economic bubbles that are artificially inflated, they invariably pop. They will. And we were already teetering on the edge of a recession. We're going to be incredibly fortunate if we can get through this without a extreme economic depression. It's the truth. But that's why we elect our representatives to actually represent us, the people. And so for you out there who think that politics don't matter or they're boring or it takes too much time, right now you're seeing the effect of it. And right now it's touching everyone. So right now, no matter how busy you are, take a moment to see that politics matter and our representation matters. And the donors to our representatives, they matter too.